But right now, we're talking with Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. For the Next Generation is the name of her book. Representative Wasserman Schultz, you said in your presentation 3 years writing this.
Yes.
Why?
Well, about 4 months after I decided to move forward with writing the book, President Obama called me and asked me to take on another full-time job in chairing the Democratic National Committee, and I felt like in order to really do the book justice and do my job justice, coming out with a policy book during the presidential campaign probably wasn't the best idea, so we pushed the book forward by a year, and so I spent another year researching and writing and came out with it in October.
By the time this book is published, you write, I hope we will look back on the health care reform debate as well as the debt ceiling debate and acknowledge it was rock bottom in the modern era of American political civility. I don't want to imagine how it would get worse.
Well, just when you thought you could not get worse, we end up having the Republicans and the Tea Party shut the government down, all in the name of stopping people from getting quality, affordable health care. It's so irresponsible that even at that point, I didn't think worse was possible.
Who is the next generation? Are you the next generation?
The next generation is really our children. I wrote this book really through the lens of being my children's mom. I realized that every decision I make, personal and professional, is done through that lens, and that even though so many politicians talk about the next generation, it's not an abstract concept for me. I have the next generation in the back of my car. And we have to measure, and I wrote the book to try to help people understand that we have to measure our nation's success by how well our children are doing. And we have to all get engaged in making a difference on the issue that matters the most to us. Because if we don't, then we're really going to damage the next generation.
Representative Wasserman Schultz will be with us for about the next 25 minutes or so. We're going to put the numbers up on the screen if you would like to talk to her about some of the issues that we'll be talking about and that Congress is confronting right now. 202 is the area code, 585-3890 if you live in the East and Central time zones, 585-3891 for those of you in the Mountain and Pacific time zones. You can also send a tweet. At BookTV is our Twitter handle in case you can't get through on the phone lines. Representative Wasserman Schultz, one of the issues you talk about in here, though, is the Patriot Act and cybersecurity and spying. 2001, when the Patriot Act was passed, most of the Congress, if not all, voted for it.
Sure, right. And
how would you have voted? You came into Congress in 2005, but how do you think you would have voted? And I know that's not really a fair question. But.
You know, I was in Congress when we voted for the reauthorizations of the Patriot Act, and under the Republican Congress, when President Bush was in office, I voted against those reauthorizations because I really felt that they didn't strike the right balance between protecting our privacy and protecting our national security. So there were versions of the Patriot Act I'd voted for. It's really hard to say how I would have voted in 2001, but there's no question that we have to strike that balance, and we need to continue our quest to strike it because I'm not sure we're there yet.
Edward Snowden, has he done our nation a favor in your view?
No, Edward Snowden is a traitor. Edward Snowden has dramatically damaged our country and should not be looked at as a patriot. He compromised national security. He violated an oath that he took and really did serious damage to the United States of America.
One of the issues, or one of the terms you use, and we see this term as bipartisanship.
Yes.
In your presentation up in Chapman Hall a little bit earlier, you talked about some of the dinners and the softball team and some of the things that you do, but how do you maintain bipartisanship? How do you get to that point where you and Republicans and Democrats are working on issues together?
Well, you have to make a sustained commitment to it. The easy thing to do is to default to our respective corners and dig in hard. And look, I mean, for me, even as the chair of the Democratic National Committee, I certainly support my party's agenda, but I recognize that it can't be my way or the highway. We don't have enough people on the other side of the aisle right now who believe that. And so I consider it my responsibility to individually reach across the aisle and find Republicans we can work with. But right now there are a precious few. They're all, many of them are worried about looking over their shoulder and drawing Tea Party primary opposition and losing their election. We can't have people in Congress who care more about power than they do about doing the right thing.
Are they suspicious of you as head of the DNC?
You know, I'm would imagine there are some, but I've found that there are enough that when they take the opportunity to get to know me, that's why we hold these bipartisan dinners, Dan Webster and I, because we have to clear away the perception that our respective roles create and really try to get to know each other as individuals and build that trust so that we can work together.
One of the things you wrote in For the Next Generation is that Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is not sacrosanct, and it can be altered. Is that a fair assessment
like
of what you wrote?
What I wrote about the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, in the book is that just like legislation that we've had for more than 200 years, when there are problems that arise, we need to sit down and try to hammer out those problems and work together. What we don't need to do, which I also say in the book, is go through 43 different fruitless attempts to repeal or delay or deny people the ability to get access to quality, affordable health care. And that's what Republicans have been incessantly attempting to do. The Affordable Care Act is a bill that was passed by both houses, upheld by the Supreme Court, signed by the President, upheld by the Supreme Court. And we had an election last year in which that was one of the central questions. And President Obama was overwhelmingly reelected. As problems arise, when you have a big change like this to a healthcare system, they inevitably will. We should sit down and commit to working together, but Republicans have to agree on the basic premise that healthcare is a right and not a privilege, and that they want to make sure that insurance companies can't drop people or deny them coverage, and make sure there is a mechanism to do that.
One other issue before we go to calls, energy independence.
Yeah.
We've heard that term, we've talked about this term for a long time. What do you propose that's different?
We've got to make sure that we wean ourselves off of our dependence on fossil fuels. No matter how much time we have left with what we have in America, it's finite. So investing in alternative energy resources while engaging in an all-of-the-above strategy, we have natural gas resources now. We're getting to the point where we actually are exporting natural gas to other countries, but we've got to have that all-of-the-above strategy, not drill, baby, drill, because that's not our key to making sure we can be energy independent.
Nancy Pelosi's 72 years old, John Boehner's in his 60s. Who's the next generation of leaders in Congress, and would you like to be Speaker of the House?
Oh gosh, well, I'm focused on what's right in front of me right now, which is doing the best job I can for the people of the 23rd Congressional District and, making sure that we can elect Democrats in my role as chair of the DNC all across the country. I'm not focused beyond that.
Who's the next generation of leaders in the House, in your view?
Well, I think
on both sides.
There are a number of members on both sides of the aisle that are building towards positions of leadership. We have, but I think, probably better to leave that question to others. I know Leader Pelosi has her list, and she very kindly included me in it. I was very pleased to be asked by Jim Clyburn to be a part of the leadership and serve as a chief deputy whip. So, right now we've just got to focus on working together and trying to get things turned around, particularly make our economy in a more robust recovery.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz was first elected to Congress in 2004. First call for her comes from Colleen in Henderson, Nevada. Colleen, we're talking about her new book, For the Next Generation, a wake-up call to solving our nation's problems. Go ahead, Colleen.
Yes, and it's not Henderson, Nevada. It's Tonopah, Nevada. I would just like to ask, or maybe just make a statement. I would like to know why Republicans think that everybody in this country wants to think like them. Why they can't figure out that some people do not want their opinions and their actions, especially when it came to choking the country in the name of the Affordable Care Act, because they didn't like it and they figured that would work. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you very much. That's one of the points I make in my book, and that we have to stop with the my way or the highway politics. Even as chair of the DNC, I understand that I support my party's agenda. I fight like heck to make sure that we can get it adopted. But I also recognize that there are other people who have valuable opinions, and that it's important to reach across the aisle and find common ground, and that's how we're going to end up with the best product. We just need more people on the other side right now to actually embrace that concept as well, and I think we'll be able to get more done.
Who are some of your best friends on the Republican side?
Lamar Smith, who is, I know, amazing, right? He's
Didn't mean to make a face.
The former